All right, boys and girls, we're going to continue with the Boxcar children. We're going to start at page 101, Henry and the Free-for-All, chapter 10. Henry and the Free-for-All. James Henry Aldine was a very rich man. His big mill stood just between Greenfield and Silver City. Now, J.H. Aldine liked boys. He liked to see them running and jumping and playing. Each year, with three other rich men, he gave a field day to the town of Silver City, and even the mills were closed on field day. Every year, the boys were training for the races, and not only boys, but men also, thin and fat, and girls trained for field day. There were prizes for all kinds of races, running and swimming and jumping. But the best one was a foot race. Sorry, guys. The best one was a foot race called the Free for All because anyone could run in anyone could run in it. Mr. Aldine gave a prize of $25 and a silver cup to the winner of the free for all. Sometimes a boy won the race, sometimes a girl. Once a fat man had won it. On field day, Mr. Henry was cutting the grass for Dr. Moore. Suddenly, the doctor stopped his car on the street and called to Henry. "Hop in," he said. "Today is field day and I want you to see the races." Henry hopped in and the doctor started the car. "I'm sorry, I can't go," said Dr. Moore, "and I want to know all about it. I want you to tell me who wins each race." Soon, Henry found himself sitting on the bleachers. By and by, a small boy climbed up to the bleachers and sat beside him. Then a man called, "Free for all! Come and get ready!" "What is that?" asked Henry. "A free for all." "Don't you know?" asked the small boy. "Didn't you see the see the one last year?" "No," said Henry. The boy laughed. "That was funny. That was a funny one," he said. "There were two fat men in it, and some girls and boys. That boy over there won it. You should have seen him. He ran so fast you could hardly see his legs at all." Henry looked at the winner of last year's race. He was smaller than Henry, but he was older. Suddenly, Henry stood up and quickly left the bleachers. He went to the room where the boys were getting ready for the race. "Do you want me to run in the race?" a man asked. "Do you want to run the race?" A man asked. "Yes, I do," replied Henry. The man gave him some track clothes to put on. "Where did you train?" he asked. "I never trained," said Henry. "These boys have been training all year," remarked the man. "Oh, I don't think I'll win," answered Henry, "but I like to run, and it's a lot of fun, you know." "So it is," said the man. "So it is." Henry could hardly wait for the race to begin. He loved to run. But at last the race was called. This time it was time to start. Henry was number 4. Now Henry began to think. "It's a long race," he said to himself, "but I go easy at first." The bell rang. Off went the runners down the track. In almost no time, Henry was far behind most of the other runners. Sorry, I just got distracted there. Off he went. Um, in almost no time at all, Henry was far behind most of the other runners, but he did not mind seeing this. "It's fun to run anyway," he said again to himself, and he tried to see how easily he could run. All at once he had another thought. I have tried to see how easy I can run," he said to himself. "Now I'll try and see how fast I can run." Then all the people began to see how fast Henry could run. He ran faster and faster, and soon he passed the two girls ahead of him. And here's a nice picture of the kids running. Um, then he passed a fat man and a little boy. The people began to shout, "Number 4! Number 4!" Here was the kind of race they loved. "Faster, faster!" cried Henry to himself. "I can run faster than this." He could. He passed number 25, number 6, then he passed number 5 and number 10. Only one runner was ahead of Henry now. It was number 16. Then Henry began to think about winning the race. He knew how much the $25 prize would mean to Jessie and the rest of the children. I am going to win the race, he said to himself. I must pass number 16. He ran still faster. He could see the line ahead of. He could see the line at the end of the race. Number 4, number 4! Shouted people. He's going to win. Does Henry win? Let's see. When Henry was near number 16, he put his head down and ran faster, as fast as he could. He passed number 16 and went across the line. He had won. Good job, Henry. The people shouted and shouted. Some men held Henry high and carried him to Mr. Aldine for the prize. The man asked, "What is your name, boy?" Henry did not know what to say. He did not want to tell his name. So he answered, "Henry James." Now this was Henry's name, but it was not all of his name. At once, the big sign says, "Henry James, number 4, winner of free-for-all." "Here is the prize, Henry James," said Mr. Aldine. "You can run well, my boy. I like to see you run." He gave Henry a silver cup and the $25. Then he shook hands with him. Just then Dr. Moore came along and climbed up in the bleachers, and but Henry did not see him. The doctor laughed to himself as Henry James shook hands with James Henry. At last, Henry got away from the people and started back to Dr. Moore's. He had seen the $25 prize in his pocket when Dr. Moore came home and found Henry cutting the grass. He laughed quietly to himself. "I just got home," said Henry. "I will tell you who won all the races." Dr. Moore did not tell Henry that he had been up in the bleachers. He let Henry tell him about the race. "And who won the free-for-all?" he asked. "I did," said Henry. "You did?" said Dr. Moore. "Good for you. What are you going to do with all the money?" "I'll give it to Jessie," answered Henry. "Good," said the doctor again. When Henry arrived at the boxcar with the $25, he found dinner ready. Jessie had boiled the rest of the vegetables and put butter on top. Yummy. The children began to eat, but hungry as they were, they stopped when Henry told them about the race and showed them the silver cup. They were so excited that they couldn't eat. "You won the race, Henry?" cried Jessie, delighted. "Oh, I am so glad. You can run fast, Henry," said Benny. "I'm glad you won the race, too." He looked at the silver cup. "I said my name was Henry James," said Henry. "That's right," said Jessie. "So it is. You didn't have to change it." "Are we rich now, Henry?" asked Benny. "Not very. No, not very," said Henry, laughing. "By the way, I brought something for supper." Jessie looked at the bag. There was some fat brown potatoes in it. "Oh, I know how to cook these," cried Jessie happily. "They will be good, and you just wait." "You just wait." "I can't wait," Henry said, laughing. Then he went back to work. After dinner, Benny played around with the dog. "Benny," Jessie said suddenly, as she hung the dish towel up to dry, "it's high time you learned to read." "No," said Benny. "No school now." Jessie laughed. "No, you can't go to school, but I can help you. I wish I had a book." Got a book right here. Um, we could make a book," said Violet. "We have all the papers left from bundles." "So we could," replied Jessie. "But what could we use to make the words?" "We could use a burned stick out of the fire," said Violet. So Jessie put the end of a long stick into the fire and burned it black. Then she used the burned end to make words. "Won't Henry be glad when he finds Benny can read?" cried Violet. Now Benny did not want to learn to read, but he liked to watch the girls make the book. Jessie made the words, "See me?" in the book. She called Benny, but he could not see from me. But he could not tell see from me. "Don't you see, Benny?" said Jessie. This one has an S. It says see. This one has an M. It says me. But Benny did not see. It is too hard for me, he said. I'll tell you, Jessie, said Violet at last. Let's make C on one paper and me on the other. That's the way they do it in school. They have him point to C, then have him point to C. The girls did this. They called Benny and Jessie, showed him again very carefully the words that said C. Then she put the two words down on the ground. Now, Benny, point to C, said Jessie. Benny looked at the two words. He could not tell. But Watch barked and put his paw on C. Here's a nice picture of C. There it says C, and there it says me. And there's the dog and the boy. Now watch. Sorry. Now watch. Did you know one of the words from the other? But Benny thought he did. Was he going to let the dog get ahead of him? Not Benny. He looked at the words and learned them almost at once. Good old Watch, said Jessie. It isn't hard at all, said Benny. Is it, Watch? Before supper, Benny could read see me run, I can run, can you run? Good boy, said Jessie. Now I must get supper. The children started up the fire and washed the potatoes in the brook. Then Jessie put wet papers around them and put them in the fire under the hot stones. Are you going to burn them up, Jessie? Asked Benny. Oh, no, Benny. You wait and see. When Henry came home, he found Jessie rolling the potatoes out of the fire. They were very black. Oh, did you burn them up? Asked Henry. No, indeed, said Jessie. Come and see. She gave 3 black potatoes to each one. Then they were very hot, said Violet. Look out. Open them, said Jessie. Take out the potato with a spoon. Then, then put butter on top and some salt. I will get Benny out. Well, how are they? Oh, cried Benny. They are delicious. What did I tell you? Said Jessie. Have some milk. Milk and potatoes make a very good supper, said Henry. That they do. You put milk in potatoes. That's always tasty too. And making mashed potatoes. Next page. I can read, remarked Benny. What? Said Henry. Yes, he can, said Violet. He learned this afternoon. Go and get your book, Benny. Benny liked to read now. It is not hard, he said. Watch can read too. Oh, he can? Laughed Henry. Let's see him. Watch is too tired now, said Benny. I will read to you. Benny read out of his new book. Good old Benny, said Henry. Come to bed now. You must be tired with all that work. I am tired too. Now we're moving on to chapter 11. The doctor takes a hand. I'm on page 117. The days went by happily for the Boxcar children. They found more treasures in the dump, and Henry worked every day for Dr. Moore. One noon, Henry came home with some new stockings for Benny. Benny was very happy about them and made everyone admire them. And when Jessie looked at the new stockings, she had a happy thought. She carefully washed Benny's old stockings and hung them up to dry. That afternoon, she and Violet sat down with the work bag between them to make a bear for Benny. You must make a tail too, Jessie, begged Benny, watching her put her arms and legs, watching her put on the arms and legs and head. Bears don't have tails. Yes, they do. They got little stubs. Um, Bears don't have tails, said Jessie. Your older bear didn't have a tail. But this bear must have a tail, good, replied Benny, knowing that Jessie would put on 2 tails if he asked her to. What kind of tail? Asked Jessie, at last. Long and thin, said, so I can pull it. Benny, cried Jessie, laughing. But she made a long and thin, just as Benny had ordered. What's his name, Jesse? Asked Benny. When at last the bear had washed over him, to him. I haven't thought about a name, replied Jesse. Why don't you think of a nice name for him? Well, you made him out of old stockings. Let's name him Stockings. That's creative. Um, all right, Stockings it is, said Jesse, trying not to laugh. And from that day on, the bear's name was Stockings, as long as he lived, and he lived to be a very old bear. Sorry. He lived to be a very old bear indeed. One afternoon, Jessie saw how long Benny's hair was getting, and she cut it with violet scissors. Benny stood quietly while she did it, but while his sister was getting supper, he did it to him. He said to himself, "Jessie, cut my hair. I'll get violet scissors and cut. Watch his hair. He'll look better." Violet scissors and cut Watch's hair. He'll look better. He found Violet scissors and made Watch lie down on his side. Then he began to cut the hair off. There's a nice picture. Benny said, "Good dog, Watch. You are Jesse's dog, and so I will cut a J in the hair. Hold still now." Watch lay still, and Benny began to cut a J. Now, don't you all go home to your dog and cut a J in the fur. Parents probably won't be happy. Um, it was not a very good J, but still it looked like one. Soon Benny had cut off all the hair on one side with a J in the middle. He stood admiring his work. But just then Jessie came to see what Benny was doing. "Benny!" she cried. "What are you doing?" Then she began to laugh, just like I did. Uh, oh, there's Oliver. He's sorry. He's been laying here the whole time. He's been very quiet, but must know I'm talking about a dog. "Benny," she cried, "what are you doing?" Then began to laugh. "Oh, Violet, come and see," she cried. "Watch, looks so funny." Jessie laughed and laughed until she almost cried. Violet laughing until she did cry. Then she could not stop crying. She cried and cried. At last Jessie made up her mind that Violet was really sick. "You must go to bed, Violet. Go to bed, Violet," she said. She helped her carefully into the boxcar and put the pine needles all around her under her. Then she wet a handkerchief in the cold water of the brook and laid it on her little sister's hot head. "I wish Henry would come home," said Jessie. "What shall we do?" When Henry came at last, she looked at Violet and said maybe she had a cold. "Maybe she sat too long in the brook," he said. "If Violet is very sick, she ought to go to the hospital," said Jessie. "Yes, I know that," said Henry, "and we don't want her to go to the hospital if we can help it. We should have to tell we should have to tell her name." "Yes," said Jessie. "Then grandfather could find us." The two older children sat up with Violet. They put cold water on her head, but after dark Violet shook all over, and Jessie was frightened. She covered Violet all over with pine needles, but but still she shook. Um, they could not get her warm. "I'm going to get Dr. Moore," said Henry. "I'm afraid Violet is very sick." Then Henry started to run. He ran even faster than he did in the race. Down the hill and to the town he ran until he came to Dr. Moore's house. "Please come," he cried. "Violet is very sick." The doctor said, "Come and get into my car." He did not he did not ask Henry which way to go, but the car went up the right road. When they came to the woods, he said to Henry, "Stay here in the car." He ran up the hill to the boxcar. It seemed like magic. He knew where to go. When Dr. Moore came back, he was carrying Violet in his arms. Jessie and Benny had watched come too. They all got into the car. "Are we going to take her to the hospital?" asked Henry. "No, I'm taking her to my house." When they stopped at last, Dr. Moore's carried Violet into the house and said to his mother, "Violet is very sick. We must put her to bed." Mrs. Moore hurried around the open beds and bringing pillows, and Mary came from the kitchen with hot water bottles. After a while, Violet began to get warm. Then Mrs. Moore came to get the other children. You must stay here all night, she said. She gave Henry and Benny a big bed, and Jessie slept in a little one. But Violet was so sick that the doctor did not go to bed all night. He would not leave her. He sat by her side until 10 o'clock in the morning. Before 10 o'clock, a man came to see the doctor. Mary told him he could wait, so he sat down in the living room. Soon Benny came in. Where is the doctor? Asked the man. He's up at Violet's room, answered Benny. This means $5,000 to him uh, if he will come down. Oh, he can't come now, said Benny. What do you mean, boy? Asked the man. What is he doing? He's taking care of my sister, Violet, said Benny. She is sick. And the man, and you mean he wouldn't leave her even if I gave him $5,000? Asked the man. Yes, said Benny. That's what I mean. Then the man said, You see, I have lost a little boy, and I think the doctor knows where he is. My little boy is just about as old as you are. Well, if you don't find him, maybe you can have me, remarked Benny. I like you. You do? Cried the man. Come and get in my lap. Benny climbed into the man's lap. Have you got a dog? He asked. No, said the man. He is dead now, but you can see him in my watch. Here it is. Benny looked at the dog. He looks like a very good dog, he said. I have a dog too. His name is Watch. Just then, sorry. Just then, lost where I was. Just then, Watch came in with Dr. Moore. Good morning, said Dr. Moore. Benny, can you go and play with Watch? Benny ran out, and the man said, Dr. Moore, where are my grandchildren? The little boy is one of them, said Dr. Moore quietly. That beautiful little boy? The man said, Yes, Dr. Moore. They are all good children, but they are afraid of you. They are afraid you will find them. How do you know that? Asked the man. They have changed their name, said the doctor. He looked at the man uh, in a queer way. The big boy changed his name on field day. You saw him then. I saw him. I saw him. What did he change his name to? Asked the man. Henry James. The running boy? He cried. That boy who won the free for all? I like that boy. So I am his grandfather. Moving on to the next chapter, James Henry and Henry James. Dr. Moore went to get his mother. Mother, said Henry, he said, this is Mr. James Henry Aldine. He wants to take his grandchildren to live with him. I'm afraid they won't want to go with you, said Mrs. Moore, until they learn to like you. And they won't want to go while Violet is so sick. Can't I see them? Begged Mr. Aldine. I won't tell them who I am. That would help, agreed the doctor. If they grow to like you before they know who you are, things will be easier. Yes, said Mrs. Moore. Stay here with us for a while. The children will learn to like you, and then we can tell them that you are their grandfather. Thank you, said Mr. Aldine. I will go home and get some clothes and come back. I will give you the $5,000. But Dr. Moore did not take the money. I just want these children to be happy, he said. When Mary learned that she was to cook for Mr. Aldine, she was frightened. How can I cook for him? He has